This is Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets for Digital Marketing Success with Steffen Horst.
Welcome back to Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets to Marketing Success, the podcast where we dive into what's driving results in today's changing marketing landscape. I'm your host, Steffen Horst, and today we're going to explore how to master positioning and messaging in the age of AI. We will explore how to apply AI-driven segmentation and content generation tools in tandem with structured customer interviews, advisory boards, and in-market experiments to validate messaging and stay ahead of the market shifts. To help us break all of that down, I'm joined by Lori Stout, CMO of Bigleaf Networks. Bigleaf Networks provides internet connectivity without complexity, making it easy for IT pros and their organizations to conduct business on the internet with confidence. For nearly 20 years, Lori has led product and digital marketing efforts at companies such as Punch, TalkDesk, and Vonage. At Punch, Lori's positioning on messaging work fueled rapid growth and culminated in a $500 million acquisition, demonstrating the power of high-impact, customer-focused narratives. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, Lori, before we start diving deeper into the topic, tell our listeners a little more about yourself. How did you get started in your career, and what led you to being the CMO at Bigleaf Networks?
Well, my career has been interesting. I actually planned to go to law school and got a political science degree, was in politics for a couple of years, quickly realized that was a disaster and not for me, and have never looked back. I kind of got into the marketing world by accident, just realized I had an affinity for it, had a really great manager early in my career who kind of recognized that affinity for marketing, gave me a shot as a product marketing manager, and the rest is kind of history. I've always been in the B2B and SaaS space, and have just been really fortunate to work for a lot of great companies that let me cut my teeth on a lot of marketing disciplines. And ultimately, that kind of well-rounded experience led me to Bigleaf to be their CMO. So here I am.
Wonderful. Now, AI is in everyone is talking about AI these days. How long have you within or at Bigleafs used AI to kind of support marketing and what you're doing in marketing?
Bigleaf is about 12 years old as a company. We were founded about 12 years ago. And from its inception, the founders used machine learning, which is, of course, a subset of AI, to drive our algorithms and make it a really intelligent platform. So I would say since the inception of the company, we've incorporated some of those AI insights into everything we've done from a marketing perspective. Of course, with ChatGPT and other AI tools becoming prevalent, we've started to lean into those a little bit further on the marketing side to see what they can do for us. And I was just thinking about this today while I was thinking about this conversation with you, that we're in a really interesting time. I remember the first day I heard about ChatGPT and I thought, well, what is this shiny object tool that, is available to us, and kind of revealing my age. But I lived before the age of Google. And I remember when, people were like, oh my gosh, this Google, it's magic. But, in school, we were taught that Googling something was cheating. And I think there's still kind of a perception with marketers that if you're using tools, AI-driven tools to do some of your messaging positioning, are you really cheating? And I see that with my kids even. My daughter's a senior in high school and my son's a sophomore in college, and anything AI-driven is strictly forbidden. It's just a dirty word. You can't say ChatGPT in either of their schools. And I keep telling them, definitely there is a time and a place for it. But what I really wish that schools were teaching kids was how to leverage these tools, especially in marketing disciplines, to really maximize efficiency and maximize your research potential. So I think we're on the cusp of seeing something really great here with these AI tools, especially for marketers.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like I have the same conversations here on my end, whether it's with clients or with friends or people with, within marketing. For the longest time, they felt similarly, is it okay using AI as part of the day-to-day work? But the reality is, and then this morning I had to very quickly put a presentation together, and then went to ChatGPT and then gave it some prompt to get some background information that I needed for the presentation. It would have taken me probably 2 hours to get all of that information together. the system got it within a minute or 2 minutes, all that I needed, right? So it's a question of sourcing the information, obviously not taking everything for granted and making sure that you kind of
Absolutely.
check it, but it will become or should be already an integral part of a day-to-day, whether it's within marketing or any other operations or a department within a company. Yep. Now, going to talk about messaging and positioning, how do you structure your messaging and positioning process to include both AI-generated insights and direct consumer feedback loops?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think in our conversation today, you're going to hear kind of a theme of balancing AI with direct customer feedback. And I know when I first met you, I mentioned that I spent some time as a customer marketer. So everything I do as a marketer is kind of through that customer lens. My team probably gets tired of hearing me say, oh, we need to get partner feedback or we need to get customer feedback. And we think we're going down a really great path, but have we spent the time to get the real human feedback from the customers and the partners? So I think there's a great methodology and there's a balance between using AI and customer-centric feedback. You can start with the AI analysis. And for me, that kind of proves what I think I know, or in some cases, it disproves it. So depending on the prompts that you use those algorithms to validate the segments that you're targeting. You might uncover new segments that you hadn't thought of. And that's the power of AI combing the entire internet for all of this information. There are niche verticals, niche use cases, things that pop up that you think, well, I never even would have thought of that. So doing some of that along with, you can use natural language processing to mine your support tickets and to mine emails and things that are coming in. And you can leverage those two things together to really identify patterns and start to think about the questions that you want to ask your customers and your partners and make sure that, the questions that you're asking are on track. And sometimes you can help your customers think of new pain points to solve that they hadn't necessarily thought of either. So once you have that AI analysis done, then it really becomes kind of a working sprint. So combine the messaging drafts with scheduled calls with partners and customers or prospects to validate the outputs of the AI. And then you want to validate all of those across your departments too. So marketing should never exist in a silo. I know at Bigleaf, we work very, very closely with our sales team, our product team, customer success, customer support. Everybody has a little bit of a different flavor of customer feedback in what they're hearing. But when you look at that holistic picture and you compare it against what AI is saying, it can really identify some points that you need to hone in on from a messaging and positioning perspective, and then some new things that maybe differentiate you from some of your competitors. And then, of course, it's always going to be a living playbook. So once you create your messaging and positioning, you're not done. You need to go back and iterate on that just like you would anything else. It should be a living document, and that cycle should continue. New AI feedback and outputs, customer validation with the team, and then rinse and repeat.
How do you approach the testing part of the messaging that you come up with? I'm assuming you're not kind of just picking one and then running through with that through all the phases that you just mentioned. So how do you accelerate A/B testing and content generation?
That's a great question. So this is where I think some of the tried and true marketing tactics come into play in combination with AI. So you can ask AI based on these outputs and based on this customer feedback that I'm telling you, give me some iterations of a message or a value proposition or a subject line. And help me test those. And then you can use your traditional email marketing, social tools, things like that to test those headlines against each other. But all along the way, you're going to look for feedback. You can incorporate things like surveys to your customer advisory boards, to your user groups. At Bigleaf, we have a cloud-based dashboard where we have in-application tooltips that we can use. So we can do some testing in there. We can test different banners and headlines and see what's really resonating with the actual living, breathing human beings who are interacting with our products and services every day. But again, it's that balance of what AI is telling you versus what you're hearing your customers say. And I think the ingredient that marketers and really anybody who's using AI tools is kind of that human touch point and bringing it all together. There's an element of warmth to messaging that I think only comes from a human being that works for a company that has a very vested interest in making sure that company is successful in solving the problems of its customers. And I know people talk a little bit about, well, we're always going to need humans to add the human connection. But what I think they're really trying to say is that element of warmth and authenticity. And I've found if you try to artificially create that with AI, it almost sounds disingenuous or, like it's trying too hard. And that's really where marketing expertise comes into play. If you're very passionate about the products and services that you sell and you fully understand the customer pain points, that warmth and that desire to engage with those customers comes through. So that's where testing what AI puts out as a potential headline, subject line, message should then be balanced with what your customers are telling you. Should try to get that in the vernacular that they use the terms that they talk about their businesses in, talk about their pain points in plain language without a lot of jargon. And that's where that authenticity comes through.
Yeah, because I think there's always the danger of using too much AI and not enough human
right.
in what you're communicating. So how do you guard against that kind of analysis paralysis or over automation that loses that human touch? How do you go about to make sure that human element is still part or has a strong part in what you're doing?
I think if you've ever used a tool like ChatGPT, you've probably gone down a rabbit hole of getting response after response. And then pretty soon you can't see the forest for the trees. It's just, it looks a little bit different than it did when you started out. And it's easy to just kind of lose sight of what the original intent was. So first of all, I would say limit your rounds of iteration with ChatGPT. Be very intentional about your prompts. And, it's great to read articles, listen to experts on how to really craft your prompts so you're getting to what you're trying, the outcome that you want in 1, 2, 3 attempts instead of 30 attempts, because then it's a lot easier to stay focused to the original goal. So limiting those iterations and then balancing that against the human feedback. Another thing is, I don't know if it's true for every company, but I know that we have some pretty strict brand guidelines and things that we want to adhere to. We have a tone and a voice that we use, certain words, and try to convey certain feelings when we use our messaging. So you can incorporate those brand guidelines and your tone and your voice in those prompts and get AI to understand to a certain extent the way that you talk about your products and services, the way that your customers want you to talk about their problems. And that adds some parameters and some guardrails that make everybody from your branding person, your social person, to your CEO feel more comfortable that you're not deviating too far from the way that your brand looks and sounds and feels to the market. And then track the decisions, see, who's consistently agreeing, who's consistently disagreeing with the AI outputs, and weigh that feedback. I mean, AI isn't always correct. And even if the information is accurate, if it's not conveying the tone and the voice that you want, then I would always lean toward human feedback. The people in your organization who are customer facing and who are talking to customers and partners every day about their problems and how your company solves for those. So definitely limit the number of iterations and prompts that you're putting into ChatGPT. Try to keep it very focused. Look at the output and then start balancing that against the human feedback. And then if there's any question, always err on the side of what your experts that are customer facing and your customers and partners tell you.
Now, you talked about obviously making sure that brand guidelines are being adhered to, right? Do you use ChatGPT or whatever AI system you're using to set up, agents that you program so that they understand who Bigleaf Networks is? They have the information about the brand so that when you prompt them, they already start from kind of a more advanced point rather than kind of you have to tell them first, this is who we are, and then this is what we do, and this is our voice.
Yes, absolutely. And the great thing about the new iterations of tools like ChatGPT, you can enter, for example, we have a strategic route to market document that we use internally for every single employee at Bigleaf to understand our mission, our core values, our brand guidelines, what makes us different in the market. You can upload documents like that, which the tool then remembers. So every prompt that you have gets a little bit smarter every time because it's building on the information that you give it over time. Now, what I have noticed is that I have to, if something gets a little off track, I have to tell the tool, scratch that from the record, that's wrong, and here's why it's incorrect. And it's just like teaching a new marketer about your business. It has the capacity to remember nearly limitless amounts of information, but it's not always right. And it needs a little bit of coaching from time to time. But as the tools get smarter and you can upload brand guidelines, route to market documents, pitch decks, customer feedback, you can have it go look at your software peer review sites. Every prompt that you input gets a little bit smarter and a little bit closer to being correct the first time that it spits out the analysis. So that's been great. Huge time savings for marketers for sure.
I love that notion that you kind of have to treat it almost like a junior marketing person in our case, right? And then you have to tell them this is right, this is wrong,
right.
Focus more on this to kind of guide it in the direction you need it.
Yes.
In order to be successful.
Which is kind of fun too. I mean, it's like almost coaching without risk. I mean, you can kind of take some liberties and do some fun things and brainstorm with this quote unquote new employee that never gets worn out and works the same hours that you do. So it's kind of fun from that aspect too.
Yeah. Now, what practical techniques such as advisory councils, in-app surveys, or user roundtables have you found most effective for capturing the nuances customer language that feels authentic and positioning?
Yeah, so we have a great user group of partners and customers that have been successfully using Bigleaf solutions for quite some time. So anytime we make a change to our roadmap or we're thinking about iterating on a new feature or solution or even changing our messaging, so whether it's a support function, something operationally on the back end, we tend to lean on that group of customers and partners to get validation and say, is this a problem for you? Is it a shiny object that we want to create, or is this something that would add value to you, either from a product standpoint, from an operational standpoint, to help you as a partner sell more Bigleaf? Does this have value to you? So when you're thinking about doing something like that, like validating a roadmap or something like that, you want to start with the human feedback. I mean, ChatGPT can't really tell you, oh yeah, this is a great idea, and this, your top partners are really going to need this. So we tend to start with our user group. We have some other methodologies, in-app tools, for example, and then software peer review sites are kind of an unsung hero for us. We use tools like G2, Gartner Peer Insights, Trustpilot, and others, and we go see what people are saying about Bigleaf and what's really standing out. For us, as an example, we have an amazing support team. I think it differentiates us from all of the competitors in the market. We hear over and over again different components of what we offer for support that goes above and beyond what other companies are offering that maybe we would have thought was just, kind of standard and isn't everybody doing this. But we're finding out that that's really kind of a white glove offering that we have that has a lot of value to our customers and partners. So we can take information like that from advisory boards and from software peer review sites, from support tickets and things that we're hearing from customers. And then we can ask AI tools, hey, knowing that this is a differentiator for us, what is the next logical step for us? What would be, a new feature offering or something that we could elevate this with? Can you help me create a roadmap of new support features? You can apply that to your products. You can apply it to your back office. There are lots of different ways to validate that. And it all starts with those user groups. If you're fortunate enough to have an advisory board, working in this consistent feedback loop and, being open that you're using AI tools. And I think that's of interest to your advisory board too. They might want to copy some of the practices and processes that you're using. So don't treat it like it's sneaky. Again, people kind of have that misconception that it's almost cheating to use these AI tools, but we have calculators for a reason. We have Google for a reason, and AI tools are going to change the game for marketers. They're not going to replace the need for the marketing touch and the creative human aspect that goes along with that. But it really opens a lot of doors for us to add more value to our customers.
I was just about to say that I believe that using AI tools enables you to kind of get the grunt work out of the way without having to spend your valuable time on it, right? Yes. And it enables you to spend more time on the really more strategy and high impact things that have a greater impact on the bottom line, basically.
Exactly. And, I think every product marketer that is listening to this has felt like they've gotten in that trap of just being a slide producer where you're iterating on all of these slides and you're laboring over, well, should I use this icon or that icon? And it frees you up to say, here is the information that we need to convey. Here's the value of this presentation. Here's how we want people to feel and the actions we want them to take. And let AI comb all of the possibilities for the layout for that. You can say yes or no, but we tend to, I think a lot of marketers are kind of perfectionists, which is, good and bad, but AI kind of takes some of the pressure off of us to find all of the possibilities and weigh them against each other and give us an output for the tactical that makes sense so that we can focus on the strategy.
Yeah. So you mentioned product marketers. How often should product marketers revisit core messaging and positioning? And what signals, for example, churn, trends, NPS shifts, competitive moves, trigger those reviews?
So again, it's kind of a living playbook when you create messaging and positioning. It should be iterated on any time that you have a change in your roadmap, if there's a change in the market, if there's a new feature that comes out, or if you're getting customer feedback saying, this is a new pain point that I didn't even realize I had. You should revisit that at least quarterly is a best practice for us. And again, you can incorporate AI for shifts in the market, acquisitions and mergers from your competitors, new players on the scene, competitors who are releasing new technologies, either similar to yours or, they're catching up to some of your technologies, or in some cases, they might be a little ahead of what you're doing. It's a great tool to measure the competitive landscape. And not every business has the luxury of having a competitive intelligence team. I know we don't. We all kind of own a piece of that. And AI has really been beneficial for us to kind of keep tabs on what's going on in the market and how the landscape is changing. So you can incorporate things like the competitive landscape with your NPS scores. If you're putting out new messaging and positioning and you're seeing a decline in your NPS score, then I think it's time to test and kind of hit pause and see what the issue might be there. Likewise, your website analytics, if you're seeing a drop off on certain pages that you've updated, social media engagement, if that's dropping off, or you're seeing negative reviews on the software review sites, or there's just any indication that the message that you're telling is not being received as credible or what the market wants to hear. There are a wide varieties of qualitative and quantitative ways to measure that. So cold and hard metrics, and again, balanced with customer feedback from the customers and partners that you trust to be honest with you.
Are you being proactive and consistently testing tweaks of your messaging to identify kind of what might resonate better with your customers?
I think everybody, if you're being honest, you could say that you could be a little bit better about it. We're trying with the tools that we have to do some more A/B testing. And again, we have the luxury of having a cloud-based dashboard where we can do some of that role-based testing. We also have a partner portal where we've incorporated user journeys, which interestingly enough, they're based on algorithms that tell us what those users want to see and the pathways that we need to take them down. So it's a great combination of, again, kind of the AI tools and then what we know about our customers and partners and what they want and need to see from us. So those are some great ways to do some built-in testing. What I love about testing now is that it's more automated than it ever has been before. So again, you can ask AI for possibilities. You can tweak those to add the human touch or the extra brand voice that you need to adhere to. And then it kind of does the hard work for you. And then you can measure those outputs and see what's working.
Now, which qualitative and quantitative metrics do you rely on to prove that your blended AI plus customer feedback approach is driving real business outcomes?
Sure. Well, for us, we don't view marketing as a cost center. We're very much an integral part of the business, just like sales would be, which is we're very fortunate to be seen that way at Bigleaf. So we measure things like MQLs converting to SQLs. We measure form conversions. We have a direct line to bookings and, lead attribution. Are they listening to a webinar where we've, used AI to come up with some hot topics and themes? Are they going to our new landing pages? Are they reading our blogs? There are lots of different ways to engage. And then, I can't stress this enough. Don't overlook asking your sales team for direct feedback. We've found that our sales team has a wealth of knowledge. They're talking to our partners every single day, and they're hearing these tidbits of information, and in a lot of cases, great ideas for how to take something that we've done well and make it truly great that we just never would have thought of because we're too close to it. So, continuous feedback from your teams that are customer facing is an incredible qualitative method for identifying if your process and your strategy is working. It's not. Find the balance between AI and customer feedback. I mean, again, it's a living playbook. It's never going to be finished. So, just always make sure that you're keeping the balance and getting that feedback from your customer facing teams, because they're the ones who are hearing straight from the proverbial horse's mouth what your market wants to hear.
Wonderful. Well, that's a great last thought. Lori, thank you for joining me on the Performance Delivered podcast and sharing your knowledge on mastering the positioning and messaging in the age of AI. Now, if people want to find out more about you, about Bigleaf Networks, how can they get in touch?
Sure. Our website is www.bigleaf.net. You can reach us on there. You can see what we have to offer in the way of network optimization. I would love to hear from you as well. I'm on LinkedIn, Lori Stout, and my email is lstout@bigleaf.net. And we'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you're using AI to balance against customer feedback in your marketing strategies. But thank you so much for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for being my guest. Now, as always, we'll leave that information in the show notes. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you like the Performance Delivered podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast application. If you want to find out more about Symphonic Digital, you can visit us at symphonicdigital.com or follow us on X at SymphonicHQ. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Performance Delivered is sponsored by Symphonic Digital. Discover audience-focused and data-driven digital marketing solutions for small and medium businesses at symphonicdigital.com.